Good afternoon. We are a bit late. Yes, we know that we are behind the schedule, but we are waiting for two participants to join us. So please bear with us for more few minutes. Thank you for your patience. Finally, we can start now. Good afternoon. My name is Gehad Mahdi. I'm from the CRC, and we have to continue the work of the Working Group 1. I have the pleasure of having Ashwaira as the co-moderator. Ashwaira is from India, and she's 17 years old. This afternoon, we are going to cover three topics. The first one is empowerment and protection of children as human rights defenders, victims of sexual exploitation. The second topic is indigenous children as human rights defenders. Third one, children human rights defenders with disabilities. Each topic will have 30 minutes. 15 minutes for the dialogue and 15 minutes for the question and answer. And please, with regard to those persons who are going to have some questions, please confine the questions or comments to maximum 2 minutes. We have to be strict for the time. Professor Kirsten Sandberg continues to be the rapporteur for the afternoon session and held by Nina Sluder from the Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights. I think, without due regard, I think we have to start the first topic, and my co-moderator Ashwaira will present the speakers.
So, our first speaker of this dialogue is Najat Mala, Majid academic, and Himanshu, 15 from India.
Thank you. Just I want to correct something. I am first pediatrician and not academics and child rights expert, but very quickly. I have the pleasure, really the big pleasure, to introduce Himanshu from Khajuraho. I pronounce it good. I will give him the floor. I'm not here to speak a lot, but I think it's a very good and strong example from one boy living in one remote, rural, and conservative area in India, where many problems, socio-economic problems, and some conservative social norms are still existing, and with also an increasing tourism because they have some wonderful place and historical place. And I think it's a very good example, and he will show you, and you will see. He have a tree here, and he will explain you. And what I want really to highlight, and it is why I really am happy to be there, this is how he built this process progressively to achieve in a very, very difficult context. Please, you have the floor. Mention.
इस पेड़ में जो है पत्तियां हैं और फल हैं, कली है और इसमें तना है और शाखाएं भी हैं.
He says that the tree that you see there, it actually represents their journey of a child club, And you will see the trunk, you have leaves, you have fruits, and you also have buds over there, and he will explain to you what are those meant for.
जो काम हम लोगों ने किया है वो पत्तियों में लिखा हुआ है, पत्तियों में है, और जो काम हम करना चाहते हैं वो भी पत्तियों में है, और जो फल में है जो काम हमने किया है और उसका हमें फल मिला है वो सफल हो चुका है काम। और जड़ से हमारा ग्रुप बड़ा हुआ, कैसे हमारा ग्रुप बड़ा हुआ, और जैसे 2014 में हमारा ग्रुप में 10 से 12 मेंबर थे, और 2016 में हमारे ग्रुप में 25 से 28 मेंबर थे, और नाउ 2018 में हमारे ग्रुप में 35 से 40 मेंबर थे।
He explained that the trunk that actually represents the kind of inputs that they have received. So all the kind of visits that they have done, the kind of training that actually they have received, and the leaves actually represent what have been their activities till date. There are leaves which also represent they have started the activity, but is not really really resulted in something particular, and they basically says that they have achieved those activities, and there are buds which says what is the idea for the future, what do they intend to do for the future.
एंड मेरे क्लब का नाम है स्वामी विवेकानंद बाल सुरक्षा संगठन।
He says that the club that he is representing today, it is named as Swami Vivekananda Child Protection Club, which has around 40 members.
One other question, because he presents his tree, and I want really to ask you, what are the key achievements you did through your club?
हम लोगों को जो पहले कोई भी नहीं समझता था, हम कहीं भी जाते थे अपनी बात को रखते थे तो हमें वहाँ पे धुतकार दिया जाता था और वो सम्मान नहीं मिलता था, और हम लोगों को अब वो सब मिलने लगा है, और हम जहाँ भी जाते हैं वहाँ पे लोग हमें अच्छे नज़रिए से देखते हैं और हमें सम्मान देते हैं। और जैसे हम लोगों ने प्लेग्राउंड के लिए भी अप्लाई किया था तो वो भी अब हुआ है, प्रोसेस में चल रहा है, और स्कूल में बच्चों को पहुंचाया, कई बच्चे स्कूल नहीं जाते थे उन्हें स्कूल में पहुंचाया, और जैसे हॉस्पिटल में एक्सरे मशीन को चालू करवाया जो कि नहीं चलती थी, और जहां हमारे यहाँ खुलेआम नशीले पदार्थ बेचे जाते थे वहां पे हम लोगों ने अपने यहाँ थाने में रिपोर्ट किया, फिर भी नहीं सुनवाई किया गया। तब फिर हम लोगों ने जाके एसपी के पास उसका रिपोर्ट किया, तब जाके अब नशा जो बिकता था वो अब बंद हो, जो नशीले पदार्थ बिकते थे वो अब बंद हो गए, और एक इंसान की गिरफ्तारी भी हुई है।
He says 4 points. First one, he talks about that the kind of respect that they get today whenever they are actually approaching the government or any of the adults in their place. That is something that they have achieved with these 2.5 years of work. Second thing, they said that Khajuraho is a place where they don't have a playground at all. So they have actually demanded for that, and that's and the government has actually taken that into consideration. They're trying to figure out what to do with it. Third, they said that healthcare facilities in Khajuraho is a very, very critical situation. Children do not get that. So when they went to a government hospital, they figured out that the X-ray machine was not really working. So they actually reported that to the concerned authority, and the concerned authority took it up and they made this X-ray machine work properly. Fourth thing he spoke about is about the drugs and kind of other kind of what do you call it? kind of a kind of addiction that actually happens openly in Khajuraho, and they have protested against that as well, because children are being used for that, and that is also, and in that particular incident there was one person who actually got arrested.
खजुराहो एक टूरिस्ट प्लेस है, वहाँ पे कई देशों से टूरिस्ट जाते हैं, पर्यटक जाते हैं वहाँ पे घूमने के लिए, और कभी कभार कोई पर्यटक कुछ ऐसे काम कर देता है जो कि बहुत शर्मनाक होते हैं, बच्चों के साथ शोषण करते हैं, तो इस चीज की रिपोर्ट पुलिस वाले नहीं लिखते थे। तो फिर जब हम लोगों ने उनके ऊपर दबाव डाला, प्रेफर किया, तब उसके बाद अब वो लोग उसकी रिपोर्ट लिखने लगे हैं।
Khajuraho is a tourism location, and it is actually in the it has a World Heritage Center. So there are lots of tourists that actually comes in. There are some tourists. Sometimes they get involved in situations where the children get exploited. So he spoke about those kind of incidences when they went to the police and started reporting. Police was very much not very keen to really take those FIRs. But now with this collectives that is coming up, the police is slowly kind of reporting those cases and actually registering those cases as well.
Just one question, Himanshu. You start by really ensuring safety and protection more widely, and the focus of this session is how you arrive to really establish some activities related to child protection online.
ऑनलाइन को लेके बहुत ज़्यादा क्राइम बढ़ रहे थे, और बहुत ही ऐसी गतिविधियां हो रही थीं जो कि गलत थीं। इसलिए हम लोगों ने जब देखा कि नहीं ये गलत हो रहा है, तो हम लोग उसकी तरफ अट्रैक्ट हुए और उसमें हम लोगों ने काम शुरू किया। जैसे बच्चे फेसबुक, ट्विटर, इंस्टा, इन सब चीज़ों में ज़्यादा इन्वॉल्व हो रहे हैं, पढ़ाई की तरफ ध्यान कम देते हैं। मतलब एग्जैक्ट टाइम वो बिजी रहते हैं इस सब में, वो मोस्ट ऑफ टाइम इसी में बिता देते हैं, पढ़ाई की तरफ ज़्यादा कॉन्सेंट्रेट नहीं करते। इस सब वजह से, और सोशल मीडिया पे बच्चे जब ऐसे फेसबुक पे ऐसे फ्रेंड बनाते हैं जिन्हें वो जानते भी नहीं, इसलिए जब वो ऐसे फ्रेंड बनाते हैं तो उनसे इतना ज़्यादा घुल मिल जाते हैं कि वो अगर बोलें कि आप अपनी फ़ोटो सेंड करो तो फ़ोटो सेंड कर देते हैं, और कुछ और भी। तो ऐसा देख के, और इन फोटोज के साथ कुछ भी गलत हो सकता है, कुछ भी, मतलब इससे बहुत ज़्यादा शोषण किया जा सकता है।
He says that the primary reason that why they have started working on online is, first is that they have figured out that their peers or their own friends were too much into this internet. They were not really concentrating on their studies, so they found that is harmful for their education. Second thing, they figured out that lots of his friends actually are accepting requests from the strangers, which is actually not really not really yielding any kind of positive results. They were also sending out pictures, other kind of materials, what has been asked for. So, and the fourth thing he said is that, when they figured out that online space is actually becoming a space for grooming children for sexual exploitation, so as a club they thought that was a very important point to really raise among their friends and peers to take it up.
They did some activities.
कुछ किया ना आपने? बोलो ट्रेनिंग किया वो बोल दो।
Sorry, what kind of activities? Because this is the assessment of situation. But
हम लोगों ने 15 हफ्ते की ट्रेनिंग भी ली, जिसमें हमें बताया गया कि इंटरनेट में क्या क्या होता है, क्या क्या गलत होता है, क्या क्या सही होता है। मैं ये नहीं बोल रहा हूँ कि इंटरनेट गलत है, उसमें अपन अपने सुझाव को और दूसरों के सुझाव को ले सकते हैं, उसको सुन सकते हैं। ये बहुत अच्छी चीज है इंटरनेट, लेकिन उसका उपयोग हमें सही तरीके से करना चाहिए। ये सब हमने सीखा जो 15 हफ्ते की ट्रेनिंग ली थी।
They themselves have taken a 15 weeks training to actually figure out what is the harm and what is the risk when you use internet without any kind of monitoring. And they have actually spoke about that to their peers as well as their friends on this. And he said that that he's not saying that internet is bad, but he's saying that if you're using internet for other purposes, not for the right reasons, it can actually harm you a lot.
I think because we have not a lot of time, I will ask you my last question, but I think that the audience will ask you some other question. My question is, because due to the context, speaking about sexual exploitation in tourism, mobilizing community leaders, local authorities, children, and just to tell you, it's the first time he left his country, and this is very important. Just what are the challenges you face and how you did and you do to overcome these challenges?
जब हम लोगों ने ये काम स्टार्ट किया 2015 में, तो हम लोग को बहुत ज़्यादा दिक्कतें आई। हम जहाँ भी जाते थे वहाँ अगर किसी के सामने अपनी बात रखते थे, वो बोलता था तुम यहाँ क्यों आए हो, तुम्हें इससे क्या लेना देना है, अपना काम करो, पढ़ाई पे ध्यान दो। और हमारे मम्मी पापा भी उतना ज़्यादा प्रोटेक्ट नहीं करते थे, वो बोलते थे कि पढ़ाई में ज़्यादा कॉन्सेंट्रेट करो और ये तो फालतू का काम है। लेकिन जब हम लोग का ग्रुप बड़ा हुआ और हमारे ग्रुप में जब 35 से 40 लोग अब हो गए और जब 20 से ज्यादा हो गए, तब हम लोग जब इकट्ठा मिलके कहीं जाते थे तो लोग हमारी बात को ध्यान रखते थे और सुनते थे।
He says is when we started this work in 2015, it was a very, very difficult journey because nobody really, appreciated it. Everybody said that, we should be studying rather than doing all this work, which actually doesn't really, doesn't really yield any kind of result. So you should actually concentrate on education rather than doing all this. But when we became a very strong club of 20-25 people together, we always approach a problem together. So when we were together and we were actually collectively approaching it, we saw a change, and that was the very reason why we achieved what we achieved today.
जब हम लोग डॉक्टर के पास गए थे, हॉस्पिटल गए थे, तब स्टार्टिंग में जब हम लोग डॉक्टर के पास गए तो हम लोग शुरू में जब जाते रहे तो उसने हम लोग के ऊपर गौर नहीं किया, बोलता था हम तुम्हारे खिलाफ FIR दर्ज करवा देंगे, तुम्हें पुलिस में भेज देंगे, अपनी पढ़ाई पे ध्यान दो, तुम्हारे पापा भी बोलेंगे, और इतनी बातें की उसने जो कि कहने लायक नहीं है। तो फिर जब बाद में हमारा ग्रुप बड़ा हुआ और अब हम लोग जब गए तो उसने हमारी बात सुननी पड़ी।
He just gave an example. He says that when we first went to these government hospitals and actually tried to tell them that you need to provide medicine to these children, or you need to make sure that these X-ray machines are working. They used to actually tell us, they used to kind of scare us by saying that we will now report to the police that you're coming and doing this kind of problems, you're creating problems, we'll tell your father, we'll tell your parents that you're actually creating problems for us. But then when we actually went collectively and we actually demanded our rights, they had no other choice than to look at it.
And I am not going to ask questions, just I want to maybe after, I want to tell because I spoke with him really longly yesterday, and what he was doing before coming here, he really raised awareness of the all community leaders to make them own that, and really speaking on behalf of the community leaders and the children. And I think really for that he needs a very big clap. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, speakers, and thank you, Himanshu, for your efforts. And you made a very important point about the collective efforts of children that changes the mind of authorities in this respect. Now we'd like to open the floor for question and answers. Please, for anyone who wants to ask a question, identify yourself, name and affiliation, and please don't forget to switch off the microphone after you finish. Questions? I think the issues raised Please, start off.
Thank you. My name is Carrie. I work for Defense for Children, ECPATS, Netherlands. What are your plans for the future, Himanshu?
मेरा फ्यूचर का प्लान ये है कि जब मैं बड़ा होऊंगा तो इसी फील्ड में जाना मेरे लिए बहुत अच्छा होगा और मैं इस कार्य क्षेत्र में कार्य करना चाहता हूं, जिससे बच्चों को मैं ये समझा सकूं कि ये पढ़ाई पे ज्यादा कंसंट्रेट करें। हमारे यहाँ के बच्चे अक्सर क्या होते हैं कि वो टूरिस्ट लाइन में ज्यादा इन्वॉल्व हो जाते हैं, क्योंकि हमारे यहाँ पर्यटक है तो टूरिस्ट आते हैं, तो जैसे बच्चों को अगर पढ़ाई करने के लिए भेजो या कोई काम करना हो तो उसे ज्यादा मेहनत करनी पड़ेगी जब उसको जाके कुछ पैसे मिलेंगे। तो मैं ये सबको समझाना चाहता हूँ, अपने यहाँ के बच्चों को और सबको जो भी इस काम में इन्वॉल्व है, कि अगर आप लोग पढ़ाई नहीं करेंगे तो अभी तो जो पैसे आपको मिल रहे हैं टूरिस्ट द्वारा वो बहुत ज्यादा हैं, लेकिन जब आप बड़े हो जाएंगे तब वो कुछ काम नहीं आएंगे।
He says that when he grows up, he would like to tell all the friends and the peers and also the other children that right now maybe what you earn from the tourists by roaming around with them, it may seem to be a huge amount of money, but as you grow up, that will actually fade away, because if you are not studying, if you are not really making your foundation strong and you're not growing well, then you will not be able to actually do anything in your life. So please concentrate on your studies. Please do other things than actually roaming around with the tourists and trying to get some little money from them.
There is no. Please. Just my question is, what are you expected? You are coming from very far. We are here meeting, and it's a child really space. What are you expected from this meeting, and what you are going to do with the result of this meeting when you are going back to your home?
हमारा उम्मीद ये है यहाँ से कि अगर हम आगे चल के कोई भी काम होता है टूरिज्म को लेके, कोई भी मीटिंग होती है, तो हमारी गवर्नमेंट को ये बोलें यहाँ से कि बच्चों को हर फील्ड में इन्वॉल्व करना चाहिए। बच्चे हर जगह जरूरी हैं, बच्चों की एडवाइस लेना भी जरूरी है। बच्चे ही उज्जवल भविष्य हैं वर्ल्ड के, और अगर बच्चे नहीं होंगे तो आगे कोई भी काम नहीं हो सकता है। और बच्चों को हर जगह इनवाइट करना चाहिए, बच्चों को हर जगह बुलाना चाहिए और बच्चों की राय लेना बहुत जरूरी है।
He says that what he really expects is that a very strong message going from this space, that the government really considers, really hears the voice of children, and they consider children's voice when they're actually developing any plan or any policy that has an impact on the lives of the children. So that's what he says. दूसरा क्वेश्चन ये था कि तुम जब ये जाओगे, ये जो तुम सीख के जा रहे हो, इसको लेकर तुम क्या करोगे?
मैं जब वापस जाऊंगा अपनी कंट्री, तो मैं जो भी मैंने यहाँ से सीखा और जो मैं सीखूंगा अभी, तो मैं वो हर जो भी मुझे मिलेगा तो मैं उसके साथ एक्सप्लेन करूंगा, उसको यहाँ का कल्चर बताऊंगा, और जो भी यहाँ जिससे मैं मिला, जो उसने मुझे बताया कि वो कैसे काम करते हैं, मैं भी जो अच्छा है मैं उस हर तरीके से काम करूंगा।
He says that when he goes back from here, whatever he's learning from this space and whatever the conversation that he had with various other children, he's going to share that back home, and here to see that how he and others together can actually take this to the other people, whether it's a community, whether it's a government, whoever is there, to actually to reach out to them and say what he has learned from this space.
Any more questions? Well, as long as there is no... please.
Microphone for the speaker, please.
Yeah, now I can see the light. I'm Javita Narang from the University of Edinburgh. We are working on an international and Canada child rights partnership project, which is running in different countries. So it's really good to know what you're doing in your club with children and online safety and protection. Our focus is very much on research and looking at how research can inform policy and practice, and maybe then feedback what's going on into the practice, into research, which we realize is very little in the field. So based on experience from Himanshu in his field, and the training that you received, do you see that there's a lot of research happening on these issues which can then help guide you in doing what you're doing, or can you feed in what you are doing into the existing research so that we can start collating these kind of positive case studies, because what you're doing is amazing?
हाँ, मैं दूसरों के साथ अपने काम को शेयर करना चाहता हूँ। जो भी मेरे साथ या हमारे ग्रुप के साथ, क्लब के साथ काम करना चाहे तो हम लोग उसके इनवाइट करते हैं, और हम जो कि आपने पहले पूछा था उसके लिए मैं हाँ बोलता हूँ।
He says that he actually welcomes anybody who would like to, like to hear about their club's experience of working in this sphere. And in terms of research, he says yes, there are, and we would like to contribute as well.
Ms. Hind Idrisi Ayubi.
Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much. I'm a member of the Committee on the Rights of the Child, and I would like to know, is the problems linked to the protection of children, protecting children against sexual violence, for example, is this due to the way in which this is done in schools and so on, other platforms, or is this due to the lack of such efforts in school in child-friendly form? What is the main cause of all of these problems?
You understand?
That's a big question, though. ये जो प्रॉब्लम हो रहा है, ये बच्चों का सुरक्षित करने में क्यों हो रहा है, तो उसका मुख्य कारण क्या है, तो तुम्हें ये अभी
Très bien. Donc, je répète.
Okay, let me just repeat. Now, in your view, the problem with promoting the protection of children against sexual exploitation in general or sexual violence, is this due to the way in which this is taught, these efforts in schools or other places where children are present, or is this due to the absence of such efforts in school curricula and other activities involving children?
It's better for you.
better. Okay. बोल रहा है कि ये जो ये हो रहा है, ये क्यों हो रहा है, ये जो सेक्सुअल एक्सप्लोइटेशन जो बच्चों का जो शोषण हो रहा है, वो तो इसमें क्यों हो रहा है, इसलिए ये अभी तुम्हें ये करना है कि
किसी टूरिस्ट द्वारा या इंटरनेट
जेन्युइन से हो रहा है, क्यों हो रहा है, तो इसमें ये है कि स्कूल में हम लोग का करिकुलम नहीं है, हम लोग बच्चों को ये सब सिखाते हैं, और ये भी है कि हमारा लॉ एंड ऑर्डर सिचुएशन ठीक नहीं है, उसमें भी नहीं होता है, लॉ एंड ऑर्डर
बच्चों को उनके पूरे अधिकार नहीं मिल पाते हैं, और हमारी लॉ द्वारा उन्हें हर जगह मतलब सम्मानित नहीं किया जाता है, और बच्चे जो हैं कि बहुत ज्यादा क्वेश्चन बता
It's my fault.
और जो है कि हमें स्कूल में इसकी शिक्षा नहीं दी जाती, और ना ही स्कूल में इसके बारे में हमें ज्यादा पढ़ाया जाता है और ना समझाया जाता है, और हमारा कानून भी इसमें हमको सपोर्ट नहीं करता है.
He says that this is a very heavy question. So, so what he says is that two things he says. One is in our schools, we still do not have, we don't have curriculum that actually speaks about gender or child rights or child protection issues in general as well. We are yet to do that. Second thing he says is law and order situation in terms of punishing the offenders is a very, very lengthy process, and that's also another reason why it's also kind of quite a tough situation to actually get justice for children those who are sexually violated.
Thank you very much, Himanshu. And continue the excellent work you are doing already. Now we are turning to the second topic of this afternoon, which is the indigenous children human rights defenders. And Ashwaira will present the speakers.
So the speakers are Manuel Lopez, OSTHR Indigenous Fellow, and Zealand, he's 15 years old from Canada.
Okay. Thank you. And it's a pleasure for me to be here with Zealand, a brilliant Indigenous First Nations youth from Canada. So I'll start first asking which are the problems that First Nations Indigenous children and youth from Canada currently face.
Hi, I'd probably say that some of the problems that we face as Indigenous children and youth in Canada would include proper housing. I know firsthand that on reserves, on our traditional territory, we don't have proper housing, we don't have a good education, and we don't have clean running water. But we also face the epidemic of missing and murdered Indigenous women, children, Two-Spirit, and all people. And that's something that I try to do in my work to make sure that those voices are heard. And, especially talking about missing and murdered Indigenous women, I do a run every year. It's a 134-kilometer run. And it's in partnership with Families of Sisters in Spirit. And we run for those women that have had their lives taken away from them. So I know firsthand people who have had their lives stripped away. Just to name a couple names, Maisie Ojic, Shannon Alexander, Kelly Morrisseau, and Gladys Tolley. And when I'm running, I'm making sure that their voices are being heard through the work that I do. So there are definitely a lot of problems and human rights issues in Canada. And as an Indigenous child, I know that we're not being treated equally on reserves. English. I have a question. I just wanted to say thank you for being here today, Manuel. My first question would be, what kind of human rights issues do you face in Mexico?
In the case of Indigenous peoples, particularly speaking, Mexico is a country that in the Americas, in the whole continent, is the second largest in Indigenous population speaking. We are around 15 to 17 million. So we have, for instance, a lot of discrimination, but you cannot accept like having a big population of Indigenous people, but it still is present there. When the colonizers left Mexico, still remain the European descendant ruling the country, and it's been there this way. And we still face this discrimination is very present in Mexico. We have problems in education. We only around 3% of indigenous people, youth, could achieve higher education, and it still is very, very low compared to the mainstream population, this percentage. So we face education problems. We faced also, as I mentioned, discrimination is very present in mainstream society. We also have problems with our land and territories. Now the companies, big companies, usually from abroad, are trying to go and get the resources, implement big projects there, only for economic reasons, and usually indigenous people oppose to these projects, and they sometimes get killed. So just last 2 weeks, one indigenous leader was killed because he was opposing a mining project. So we have also these issues of land and territory and historical poverty. We remain in the bottom of Mexican society, and with big problems in this area of poverty. And of course, a lot of violence. Just yesterday, we remember for years that 43 students were killed in a little town in Mexico because of protest against the government. So also this violence is related with the presence of drug cartels as well. So yeah, we have those problems as well in our communities. And to continue with this dialogue, I would like to know, Thilan, how do indigenous First Nation children and youth are engaged in solving the problems you mentioned before?
I think that some of the ways that us as indigenous children solve problems is by working together with each other. Definitely having that communication with each other, because some things that I know is that the adults sometimes don't take us seriously, and as children we know that our voice should be heard. So I'm grateful that we have leaders that we can look up to, like Murray Sinclair, Cindy Blackstock, and these are people that are influential people that help us be the people that we can be in the future, but also the people that will make us the humans that we are today. So I know that some of the ways that we work together to solve these problems is because I like to say only one person can create a drop in the ocean. But when we work together, we can make it rain and create a ripple effect that is heard all over the world. And as indigenous children, the more and more that we keep on speaking and standing up and saying that our voices should be heard, that's how we're going to solve these problems. Thank you. I have another question. How do you make sure that the children are heard at the government level, the indigenous children heard at the government level in Mexico?
Thank you, Thilan. I've been here for 4 months in the office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights, and I'm surprised that Mexico is very active in the participation regarding indigenous issues and supportive. But back home is the opposite. That's the opposite. We don't have, even though we have ratified the Convention for rights of the children. I think the most important is the implementation. Also, we have a signed and accepted UNRIP as well. So Mexico seems progressing, but it is the implementation that is failing. For instance, in the case of education, we have schools, and supposedly it should be bilingual, but it's not in reality. It's only in the paper. And in the case of voices of children and youth to be taken and to be heard by the government, there are no spaces yet. There are some initiatives of allow in the past few years children to speak in the parliament and to bring these issues, also to bring these issues to the official, the government official offices that address indigenous issues. But still, this part in Mexico of bringing and allowing and enhancing participation of indigenous children and youth is something that is not very present. Not even sometimes like adults, as I mentioned before, if you oppose to a project, you risk your life. So yeah. So still, we are not at that level for children and youth. And another question that I would like to know, because we are talking and discussing also the presence of online presence, I would like to know how are indigenous children and youth, First Nations children of Canada using the internet and social media to address these human rights issues that you mentioned earlier.
Miigwech Manuel. I think there are a couple ways that we are using social media and internet for the good. We're definitely using it because I know I talk with friends online and using like different apps to communicate with each other about like things that we could change in Canada, being some of the topics. For Indigenous children who grow up not on their traditional territories, I, especially as myself, I'm appreciative because there are like language apps that I can use to see if I just to get a couple words from, and they help us to learn our language slowly but surely. The more that we go back to them, and we can keep on learning about our language that way, because like especially for Indigenous people. They tried in the residential schools to take away our voice, and also in the 60 Scoop, but like because they tried to take our voice away, you know, and how we're using these apps because maybe we might not be able to meet each other in person. That's why we have things like social media and internet for these type of topics to speak about. But also, going back to what I was saying, they tried to take the Indian out of the child. That's what they were trying to do. They were trying to assimilate us, and we've gone through a lot of oppression and depression in Canada as Indigenous people. But I'm here today to tell you that they didn't succeed about taking my voice away. A new Indigenous wave is coming, and I'm on that path. And I feel the more that I can raise my voice and tell people in person, but also through the internet and on social media about what they can do, how they can change their world around them, that's what I want to do when I get older. I want to leave my legacy, and I want to leave my mark. Miigwech. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Another principle, like Hemachua has said here, Thielen has said, when working together, we can make a rain. This is a very important principle about collective approach. approach to children's rights. Now we open the floor for any questions. Please, Mr. Orest.
Good afternoon, and thank you. I'm a Canadian Ukrainian from Saskatchewan, where there's a large indigenous population, as you know. I have two elements to what I want to say, because working together, as the chair has just said, is something that I experienced as a child. When I was in high school, Bedford Road Collegiate in Saskatoon, we had a peer program where indigenous and non-indigenous students were paired together. And unfortunately, my peer, a Dakota woman, passed away in 2014, and her daughter died in 2001. For me, living in a middle-class family and getting to know Wilma was quite a wonderful experience, because it opened my eyes to the different worlds that we lived. And as you highlighted, Thailand, we still live in those different worlds. We still have reserves, and we have a complete, an often split. But I thought that was a very good program, and I certainly learned. And I remember Wilma used to come to my house, and we'd talk often late into the night about the different issues. She became pregnant as a teen, as a young girl, a young woman, and out of wedlock. And that was also something that we had to talk about. And it was a kind of a coaching program. She coached me and I coached her. So that was a really good experience, and it helped shape my life in terms of recognition of the importance of the indigenous peoples to Canada as the First Nations. The second point I want to raise or ask you, because the Committee on the Elimination of Discrimination Against Women held an inquiry into grave or systematic violations of the missing or murdered women and girls in Canada under the previous government, the Harper government, which rejected the findings of that inquiry. But the present government embraced that and actually received the members of the inquiry to Canada to have a conversation, which opened up the door to the inquiry into missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls. My question to you is, because we're here also talking about participation and inclusion, are Indigenous young people and children being consulted as part of that inquiry process? Thank you.
Thank you very much. I would say that the amount of children and youth in like those conversations is there, like it's still there, but I don't think there's enough representation of young people, my age, younger, and older. I do believe that we are talking about this, and the inquiry was opened up, but, you know, we have these inquiries to have conversations, but the one thing that we can't take away is the lives that they had. So when we are talking about this, we need to put these words into action. So we need to make sure that there are resources that people can go to for help when they are in need or if they are in dangerous situations like that.
Any more question, or otherwise I'll give the floor to Najat.
Sorry. Just I want to, I just came back from Canada and Moncton, and I am sharing the International Bureau of Children's Rights. And what is currently going on, the problem and the rights of Indigenous and First Nations are really in the high level of the political agenda in Canada, with a lot of money, sure, but also it's a high priority. And what I heard and I discussed with also the ombuds, and in your country is the ombuds of youth and children, they are currently working on this point. And I think it's maybe a kind of counseling. It would be very useful, really, to link with them, because currently they could help you, because you are doing that, and really because I think what it's important, you are a human rights defender, and some events like this is also to build bridges and to make you maybe access to that. And I will be very happy if I could build this bridge. But this is really the very strong political moment.
Thank you, Najat, for the comment in this respect. And if there's no other question, I have a question myself to Thailand with regard to your activities collectively with other human rights defenders. We understand that Canada is a federal state in that sense. What is the reaction of the local government to your requests? Are they dealing with your requests? Are they negotiating with you? Are they listening to you? Not only in schools and so on, but I'm talking about the local government and the local representation of the parliament.
So, from what I know personally, there is a little bit of representation in the government from Indigenous people. We have Romeo Saganash, we have Justice Murray Sinclair, and those are the people that we are speaking to see if they can help us, because they're on that level that helps us get to where we want to go. So, especially we have different days that we want to make sure that our voice is being heard at the government level. We have a Heart Day, and there's many different times and places when we are out there peacefully protesting and saying that our voices should be heard and that we deserve our rights just as much as anybody else does.
Thank you. I'm Kirsten Sandberg from the Committee on the Rights of the Child. I have a question to Manuel, and it's also about how do you, in your movement, use online spaces. Could you say something about that?
Yes. Sadly, we in Mexico, our communities, indigenous communities, especially in the rural areas and remote areas, internet connectivity and also the availability of devices as computers and all these things is not very present. In those communities is difficult. But we also, now as indigenous people, also are present in living in cities, in the cities as urban indigenous. And sometimes was this migration to the cities was more because of the deterioration of the environment. But we are in the cities, and there we live still in poverty. We live outside the cities, but there is a possibility to get access to these devices, and there are now. Like youth, especially and children, more said youth, are engaged in social media to promote events, to promote culture, also some language, some traditional songs, and so it is becoming useful. These tools. For instance, in the university I'm based, we have a group of indigenous students, and we promote our events through this Facebook page. So it is helping us, but it's mainly for those indigenous living in the cities, those indigenous youth living in the cities, and that have the possibility to connect, and also. Some are connecting only with among themselves, but with other indigenous groups at national level as well. So it is helping, but in those communities that are remote and in our traditional territories, still internet has not reached connectivity there. So, yes.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you very much, Chair. I just have a very quick question. Now, really, the key word for today is empowerment and participation or involvement. Now, among these indigenous people, what about the involvement of children? Does this exist? Are the children's lives really factored into all of this? And the whole dimension of protection, in your view, the recommendations made by the Committee on the Rights of the Child and other UN treaty bodies, has this really had a positive impact on acknowledgement of the rights of indigenous peoples?
Microphone, please.
Alors, thank you very much. My question was very simply, the whole empowerment and in participation dimension, this is really our fight within the Committee on the Rights of the Child. Among the indigenous peoples, are the children really listened to? Are their views taken into consideration? Is their involvement really recognized? First question. Second question, in your view, the action, the recommendation by the Committee on the Rights of the Child, among others, along with the other UN treaty bodies, has this made it possible to make a positive improvement with regard to the acknowledgement of indigenous peoples' rights?
In the case of Mexico, as I mentioned earlier, there is not much space for children participation. We not even sometimes for like activists, as I mentioned earlier, because if you oppose to a project, you risk your life. And it is also related to education as well. So we don't form in our educational system children for their right. Are present in the curriculum, but very general. And that's for general children, not specific for indigenous people. Indigenous school is not address the indigenous rights they have. It's more general, like the rights of the children, but in general, not specifically for children. So it is related to implementation. We don't have these spaces in the case of Mexico or have not been promoted the spaces for the participation of children. And also to talk about indigenous is, as I mentioned, we have several contexts. We have the rural, remote context of communities of 10 families, 20 families, very, very small communities, and how you can enhance participation in those communities. And then you have the other communities in urban spaces. And I think it's becoming also part of the discussion going on in Mexico, how to allow, but still now we don't have spaces for this formal participation. I mentioned earlier that in the case, what I know is that some indigenous children visit the local parliaments to see how things are done in the parliament, or visit to the offices of the government, and that's to raise only their problems. But as a formal participation, or there is not much presence in the case of Mexico.
Thank you very much, Thiel and Martin Lopez, for your presentation. And now we have to thank them physically. We are going now to turn to the third and last topic, which is the children's human rights defenders with disabilities. Ashwire, please.
The speakers are Catalina Devandas Aguilar, UN Special Reporter on Persons with Disabilities. Magdalena, she is 12 years old from Moldova, and James, who is also 15 years old and from Scotland.
Well, thank you very much for this opportunity. As I think has been the spirit of this session, the participation of children is the most important aim of this session, and one that is very clear both in the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities and the CRC. And I think that for that I'm very glad to have here Magdalena, that she's a representative of Lumos from Moldova. And Magdalena will talk to us about the challenges and the opportunities that she has faced when it comes to inclusive education, and also she will face with us, I think, a reflection on the challenges of institutionalization and how children with disabilities face that. Magdalena, please.
Bună! Mă numesc Magdalena, am 12 ani și sunt din Republica Moldova.
Hello, my name is Magdalena, I'm 12 and I come from Moldova.
Eu reprezint organizația Lumos.
I represent Lumos organization.
Pentru cei care nu cunosc, organizația Lumos a fost fondată de autoarea romanelor Harry Potter, J.K. Rowling.
For those who don't know, Lumos is founded by the author of Harry Potter novels, J.K. Rowling.
Misiunea organizației Lumos este ca până în anul 2050 să nu mai fie niciun copil în niciun internat din întreaga lume.
The mission of Lumos is that by 2050 to not be any child in institution around the world.
Lumos ajută ca copiii să iasă din internate și după aia să se integreze în comunitate.
Lumos helps children to get out from the institution and to integrate better into community.
Pentru ca un copil să facă parte dintr-o comunitate, trebuie să aibă parte de o familie și să aibă acces la educație.
For a child to feel protected and to be part of the community, it should have a family and to have access to education.
Dacă eu m-aș fi născut cu 10 ani în urmă, cel mai probabil că aș fi locuit și învățat la un internat, deoarece școlile nu acceptau copiii cu cerințe speciale.
If I was born 10 years earlier, probably I would been living and teaching in a boarding school, because schools are not open for children with special needs in Moldova.
Din fericire, în școala mea, ca și în majoritatea școlilor din Moldova, este una inclusivă, astfel că copiii cu dizabilități nu mai sunt obligați să se întoarcă la internate, dar reintegrarea lor în comunitate este una mult mai simplă.
Fortunately, my school, as the majority of schools in Moldova, are now inclusive ones. That's why children with special needs don't have to go to institutions, and their reintegration into community is more simple now.
Trebuie să recunoaștem că drepturile copiilor cu dizabilități sunt cel mai des încălcate.
We have to recognize that rights of children with disabilities are violated very often.
La noi în școală am creat un grup care promovează drepturile copiilor cu dizabilități.
In our school, we've created a group which promotes children's rights.
Ținând cont că persoanele cu dizabilități nu au oportunitate de a-și promova drepturile, astfel că pentru ei mediul online este mult mai simplu.
Taking into account that children with disabilities don't have so many opportunities, the online space is a good way to promote and fight for their rights.
În urma experiențelor noastre ca grup și în urma discuțiilor, noi venim cu niște idei și sfaturi despre cum putem promova drepturile online.
Taking into account our own experience and after a lot of discussions, we come now with some ideas and suggestions how we can promote and how we can defend our own rights.
Promovarea pe canalele de socializare, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, etc.
It works very well to promote our rights on media channels like Facebook, Instagram, Twitter.
Apelarea la persoanele influente și cunoscute pe internet.
We also ask influent and well-known people on internet to promote and fight for our rights.
Realizarea de mesaje, materiale audio, video și scrise care se pot promova pe TV sau la radio.
We to create audio, video, and written materials which could be promoted on radio and TV.
Noi avem dreptul la asociere, astfel că putem crea grupuri online care au aceleași scopuri pentru ca drepturile copiilor cu dizabilități să nu mai fie încălcate, ci respectate de toți, adică toți să fim egali.
We all have the right to associate, so we can create online groups which have the same goals in order to be all together because to achieve the similar goals we have.
Să ne împărtășim istoriile noastre ca oamenii să înțeleagă cu ce se confruntă copiii cu dizabilități în fiecare zi.
Another way to promote and defend is to share our own stories for everybody to understand what kind of difficulties do we face.
De asemenea, ar fi utilă o aplicație pe telefon, prin care persoanele cu dizabilități să găsească răspunsuri la întrebările lor. De exemplu, ce să faci atunci când ești insultat în stradă?
I also think it will be really useful to have an application on phone where you can find the answers to your questions. For example, what to do if you were insulted in a public space.
Realizarea cercetărilor, sondajelor în mediul online referitor la un subiect care interesează pe copii.
So organizing researches, online surveys about some interesting topics for us as children.
Promovarea drepturilor pe billboarduri în transportul public, astfel ca oamenii de rând să înțeleagă dificultățile copiilor cu dizabilități și cum pot contribui la apărarea drepturilor lor.
And also good ways to promote our rights through videos, through several materials on billboards, on the public transportation in order for ordinary people to understand what difficulties we face and how they can help us to defend our rights.
În zilele noastre, internetul, telefoanele sunt cel mai des accesate, astfel că ele pot fi folosite ca să ne atingem scopurile.
In our days, internet and mobile phones are very used. That's why they could be used to achieve our goals.
Eu personal, prin intermediul internetului, am discutat și m-am întâlnit față în față cu președintele Moldovei.
Me personally, through internet, I had the opportunity to discuss and to meet face-to-face with the President of Moldova.
Chiar dacă asta pare dificil, este posibil.
Even this looks difficult, this is possible.
Foarte mulți copii își petrec majoritatea timpului pe internet, dar dacă folosim mediul online util, putem schimba foarte multe lucruri în viața noastră.
Many children, they spend a lot of time on internet, but if you use in a useful way this time, we can change a lot of things in our life.
Și ca să încheiem un mic mesaj.
And in order to finish, I have a short message.
Fiecare copil are nevoie de dragoste, grijă și să fie protejat, indiferent de care dificultăți sau e cu dizabilități, iar asta e misiunea organizației Lumos.
Every child has the right to be protected, to be loved, and even this child has disabilities or has difficulties, and this is the mission Lumos organization have.
Și eu am o sugestie.
I have a suggestion.
Sperăm foarte mult ca la următoarea conferință la care se va discuta despre promovarea și apărarea drepturilor copiilor cu dizabilități să participe și copii fără dizabilități.
So I hope that the next meeting we'll have, when we will discuss about how to promote and defend the rights of children with disabilities, to participate not just children with disabilities, but without as well.
Mulțumesc pentru atenție.
Thank you.
Thank you, Magdalena, and I'm sure we have a lot of questions for you, but in order to make sure that also we have James speaking, we will leave the questions to the end. So we have James from Scotland. As was mentioned, he's 15 years old and member of an organization in Scotland, Enable. James, what are your experiences of acting as a human rights defender?
So I'm part of an anti-bullying campaign ran by Enable Scotland, and recently I've been visiting local schools and handing out the message, if you are getting bullied, go see someone, and it's very important that you've got someone that you can go and talk to and you can trust. And it's not being afraid to ask for help, but knowing where you can go to for help.
Thank you. Do you have any particular recommendation on how to stop children that are acting as human rights defenders from being bullied themselves, and specifically online?
I think anyone, children, adults, able or not able, can easily get bullied online. It's a problem that really needs to stop. What you should do is you should always have safeguards in place. So things like change your settings so only people that you want to see your photos or texts or messages can see them. So set up your social media platform or site properly. But even if you don't have someone that you can trust, safeguard again, you can see virtually anyone. You really do need a safety net when you're online.
And from your experience and your work, do you have any recommendations for people like us working on human rights on how to advance the rights of children with disabilities?
No, not really, but I thought the child-friendly version of the day of discussion was quite a good idea.
Okay, thank you very much. I would like to perhaps just follow up before we open the floor for the questions of the audience. You said something, Magdalena, very interesting, as the inclusion and participation not only of children with disabilities but of other children. And you talk about very positive experiences that you had in your own country, meeting the president, using social media to raise awareness. And you've also mentioned important changes, so now there's more inclusive schools in Moldova. But what do you think are the challenges that remain? Do you think that children with disabilities in Moldova are really participating in the decision-making processes in the country?
dizabilități încă nu sunt implicați în total în toate aceste școli inclusive. Ei trebuie să fie anunțați într-un fel sau
So first of course, they are not fully engaged. First of all, they have to be informed about many opportunities because they miss this part, many of them.
James, how do you think that we can learn better, or children with disabilities can be more familiar with you mentioned the tools that you can use online, but do you think that there are problems, for instance, with accessibility? And is there something that children with disabilities are not, have no easy access to technology because of lack of accessibility? Is there something that can be done on that? Not really?
So it's pretty difficult to set up social media platforms sometimes, especially for people that don't know how, or if they live on their own, or if they've got disability or not. And it's quite difficult to find and change these settings occasionally.
Thank you very much. So I guess that we have a lot of challenges ahead. Should I open the floor for questions?
Yes, if you... As long as you finished
Yes, I think
the
so.
dialogue, I think the
We have 10
floor
more
is
minutes.
open for question. And I have to, first of all, to thank very much the interpreters for giving us 10 extra minutes, maximum 10 extra minutes. So maximum we are going to finish by 4:40. Thank you very much, interpreters. The floor is open. The gentleman at the back.
Thank you. My name is Erich Kofmel. I'm with Autistic Minority International. Autism is an often invisible condition, even to other autistics. We were only able to find each other with the advent of the internet and the emergence of autistic communities in cyberspace. Even those of us who do not speak may be able to express themselves in writing online, as evidenced by internet fora that unite autistics across the spectrum, however severe our condition may be perceived to be by others, and from children and adolescents to persons in their 50s, 60s, or 70s, often diagnosed subsequent to a child or grandchild having been found to be on the autism spectrum. Too often it is wrongly assumed that autistics cannot or should not be consulted about decisions that will affect us, many of them potential sources of human rights violations, such as our living arrangements or medical and psychological treatment. Instead, non-autistics, among them parents, professionals, and so-called autism experts, make decisions on our behalf, but without our consent. Most autistics, be they children or adults, can make their own decisions if barriers are removed. Instead of depriving autistic children of assistive and augmentative communication devices in order to force them to speak, autistic children must be empowered to defend their human rights through the use of digital media. I would like to affirm that autistic children and adolescents are full, equal, and valued members of autistic peer support and self-advocacy groups online. If you get a chance, please also view the video of the session on alternative care in the other room for a more substantial statement with regard to autistic children and adults as human rights defenders. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your statements about the situation of autistic children. Please, for the speaker, for those who are going to ask the questions, please confine to maximum of 2 minutes, preferably 1 minute. Lady, please.
Good afternoon. Thank you all for your excellent presentations. My question is with regard to the determinants of health and the growth of technology, where now, particularly persons living in vulnerable situations, as is the case with persons who are sexually exploited, as is the situation of too many Indigenous children and young people, and as is the case for persons with disabilities who rely on communication not just as a networking and education platform, but also as a means of communication. Do you think that there should be serious consideration of technology as a determinant of health and an enabling factor in the making it more broadly available as a human rights mechanism?
Would you like to answer the question? Please, go ahead.
To answer your question, yes, we definitely need to make social media platforms more accessible. And you're right, that's one of the ways that many use to communicate. So yes, it does need to be more accessible, and I hope to change that.
Hello there, my name is Robbie. I'm a convener of the Equality and Human Rights Committee at the Scottish Youth Parliament. I've got a question for both panellists. Is that okay? So my question is going to be based around education, because I myself have Tracy's autism, dyslexia and rare speech and language disorder. So do you feel like in the education system that all students should be taught all additional support needs so they have a better understanding of their peers that may have disabilities? If that makes sense.
Yes, me having autism myself, I think it should be very important the other people in the class or even the whole school, maybe even do an assembly and make people more aware of all kinds of disabilities?
Is Magdalena have a response to that? Because the question was for both, I understood. Okay, then we take the next question. The lady behind Kirsten.
D'accord. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much. Khadija Mumuni. I come from the Nigerian Federation of Handicapped Persons. Their presentations mentioned a framework established to protect handicapped persons within communication. My question, these measures, do they take into account the various types of handicapped? You know, within handicapped persons, needs are quite different. Somebody who is visual problems does not have the same problem as somebody with hearing problems. You know, I would like to know, what do you do to take care of the various categories of handicapped persons? Thank you.
Is it a question for the panelists or is it a question? I think that from my point of view as a special rapporteur on the rights of persons with disabilities, this is a very important question. How to make sure that all the responses, all the policy responses, all the technology and information is available in the different formats for all persons with disabilities. We talk about how to make information, communication, services, goods inclusive for persons with disabilities, and that means for all persons with disabilities, and that requires additional understanding and taking into account the different groups. We have different groups represented here, but still we need other groups to be represented. And nothing will be fully inclusive and will aim to the participation of children with disabilities. And I think this is fundamentally important for this discussion, to make sure that we have children with disabilities sitting in the discussion table on an equal basis with others. We must make sure that all the spaces and infrastructure and conditions are accessible and inclusive to them. And so what you're saying is fundamental. If from the point of view of the CRC or if in the recommendations that we are making to states, we don't make sure that the information is fully accessible for those children with all sorts of disabilities, being visual or being deaf or being autistic persons or being children with other kinds of support needs, we are not going to make sure that everybody is participating. And I do agree with you on the question on the determinants of health. We have a very huge problem with, for instance, what we call the deaf illiteracy, health illiteracy, because a lot of deaf children are totally excluded from information that it's in this online space, and that functions as a determinant of health that is not, which they're being excluded from, right? And so, yes, we need to take that into account. Thank you for the question.
Thank you. It was amazing listening to all of you. It's been such an enriching session. I talked about our International Canada Child Rights Project earlier. So one of the focus that I said was research, but we're looking at child protection, child participation in child protection. And all of you are clearly involved in a lot of child protection issues, bullying, sexual exploitation. I was wondering, do you face any challenges associated with your own protection when you're working on these issues? And do you feel like you're sufficiently supported? What kind of support is available to you?
This question to all the panelists?
Yes, all the defenders here.
All the defenders. We didn't come to the
defenders.
end. We didn't come to the end of general questions because we are focusing now on the topic we are dealing with. So I think we continue with the topic first, and if we have time, we can open the discussion, a general question for that purpose.
Sure, thank you.
Any question about the topic we are dealing with? Please.
Hello, my name's Emily. I'm from Australia. I have a question for Magdalena. You spoke a lot about inclusive education in Moldova. I was hoping you could provide the room with some tips on how the classroom was made inclusive for you and your peers. What benefited you the most?
Anul trecut, la noi în școală, s-a cumpărat un elevator. A fost foarte, foarte costisitor. Iar anul ăsta s-a făcut în școală un ascensor, care e foarte, foarte confortabil. De a te ridica la etaje și de a merge la fiecare lecție și de a învăța foarte multe lucruri.
So before last year, I couldn't go to classrooms because I have to go to stairs and I couldn't. But last year, in my school, they bought a kind of elevator on stairs. And this year, they bought an ascensor elevator. Yeah, which is a really, really expensive one. And they changed a bit of the infrastructure on the school. This was just for my case.
My name is Evelyn Eriksson. I'm working with children's rights in education. And I'm also teacher of special need education. What do you want to ask or the Committee on the Rights of the Child and other adults here today regarding children with disabilities in schools? Are there more thoughts, wishes, suggestions you have that would make it more easy for you being a child with a disability? Thank you.
Could you please switch off your mic, madam?
De exemplu, eu vreau să trec în altă clasă la o lecție și nu pot singurică, adică nu pot singură. Colegii mei să mă ajute, adică să ne ajutăm reciproc unii pe alții.
It was like more like to promote this, that each other, to help each other, like children to help each other, you have to promote this in school because, for example, she was telling that I have to go to another classroom, but by myself I cannot. So this is like simple and easy, looks like, but I need help.
Și profesorii să fie mult mai înțelegători. Dacă nu înțelegem o temă sau o lecție, să vină lângă noi să ne explice de 2 ori mai mult, să ne mai mult timp pentru acasă, ca noi să înțelegem tema aia, să înțelegem. Să fie mai înțelegători profesorii.
And teacher to help us more, because many times for us it's difficult to understand the topics as are doing other children in the classroom. So to give us twice more attention and time and tasks in order to get like other children in the classroom.
regarding inclusive education. And when we start speaking about inclusive education, we focus on schools. But the problem is you can have a wonderful school with a really high level of accessibility, and I am coming from Morocco, but you have streets who are not accessible, you have public transportation which is not accessible. And I think we need really, when we are speaking about inclusive education, it's not only schooling, but also the whole environment. We have to be very careful regarding this point.
Sure, very much so. I think this is one of the main points in this respect, is not only inclusive education, but rather that inclusive environment for disabled, or rather for persons with special needs in this respect. I think we are last question, because we have to finalize.
Thank you. I will be short. I'm Ines from Serbia NGO, Child Rights Center. Our children also participated in this publication. But we find in Serbia very difficult, like for us it's a big challenge with mental health issues, with serious mental health issues. So physical obstacles are like easily resolved in a way. I mean, not easily, but like easier than when children have serious mental health issues, and they should be included in regular education in both preschool and in regular primary school. So if I would welcome some suggestions also, if we can also discuss these issues, if we have time.
Well, thank you very much. I think that deserves a bilateral conversation afterwards. But indeed, when we talk about inclusive education, and of course taking into account what you say is making a change in the environment, but of course children with any kind of disability should get the support they need in school to be able to participate on an equal basis with others. The worst part would be to segregate children. Segregation will be the most costly response for all society, not only for children with disabilities, but of course they will face the worst situation if they are excluded from the mainstream regular school. But it is true that without the adequate support and accommodations, they will not be able to succeed and have a happy experience in the school, which is what we all want to have here, right? So support in the inclusive school is fundamental. And the changes, like, is not only to make inclusive education, we just don't need to change one part of the school. We need to rethink the way in which the school is designed and the educational system is designed to be able to include everybody, not only children with disabilities. I think that inclusive schools will work for very marginalized groups as well, if well designed. But we can have a conversation afterwards for the specific question. Thank you.
La noi în școală, copiii cu probleme mentale are fiecare câte un asistent personal. Și plec la lecții oricum și câte un pic învață.
So just an example, in our school, we have children with mental health problems. So they have a personal assistant and they can go to classes as other children are going.
Thank you very much. We come to the end of our session. My co-moderator, Ashwire, is going to close the session, please.
So thank you all the speakers to share their experience with us, and others who took part and responded in discussions and share their opinions and views with us. Thank you.
I have a recommendation for CRC for you.
Oh, well. We have many.
No. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.